When life presses in on you from every side, and you feel like the weight of the world is sitting on your chest, there comes a moment when you realize this thing is bigger than you. You've tried everything you know how to do. You've called every number in your contact list. You've read every book, tried every method, consulted every expert. But the storm still rages, the pain still lingers, and the door still won't open. That's when you must understand there are some things that are not meant to be fixed by human hands. There are some battles you can't fight with logic or strategy or intellect. Some chains don't break with effort. Some wounds don't heal with time. Some doors don't open with keys. There are things in this life that only God can do. There is a level of deliverance that no man can give you. There is a level of breakthrough that no system can manufacture. There is a type of healing that doesn't come in bottles or pills or treatments. When you're at the end of your rope, when you've run out of options and strength, when you've exhausted your plans and you're still empty, still confused, still lost, that's when God steps in. That's when he shows you what he can do. That's when he shows up, not just as a savior, not just as a helper, but as the only one who can bring light into your darkness and turn your mess into a miracle. You see, God allows us to come to the end of ourselves on purpose. He allows the brook to dry up. He allows the bread to run out. He allows the plan to fail. Not because he wants to see us suffer, but because he wants to break us out of the illusion that we are our own source. He wants us to know that it is not by might, nor by power, but by his Spirit. And when you finally fall on your knees, not out of tradition, but out of desperation, then and only then do you come to the revelation, only God can do it. Oh yes, you've been wrestling. You've been fighting in the dark. You've been tossing and turning in your soul, trying to figure out what went wrong, trying to fix it, trying to hold it together. But what if I told you the blessing isn't in the fix? The blessing is in the release. God is waiting for you to stop doing and start surrendering. He's waiting for you to stop striving and start trusting. He's waiting for you to get out of his way so he can show you his way. You've been trying to carry a load that wasn't yours to carry. You've been trying to solve a problem that was never meant to be solved by you. Some of us are so determined to prove our strength, to prove our worth, to prove we can do it, that we miss the divine. But there comes a time when the situation gets too big, when the mountain is too high, when the pain is too deep, and you realize this is beyond my control. And that's not weakness, that's not failure. That is the beginning of faith. God never called you to fix it. He called you to trust him through it. And trust is not passive. Trust is not lazy. Trust is active surrender. Trust says, Lord, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I believe you're going to make a way. Trust says, I'm not going to let my circumstances silence my praise. Trust says, even in this, even in the valley, even in the fire, I know you are still God. And that's the point. You don't have to have all the answers, because you serve the one who is the answer. People may walk away, money may run dry, plans may fall apart, but when everything else fails, he remains faithful. When the storm comes and you can't see your way, he is the anchor. When the tears fall and the nights are long, he is the comforter. When the door slams in your face and your heart is shattered in pieces, he is the mender of broken things. Only God can do that. Let me tell you something. Your greatest testimony won't come from what you achieved on your own. It won't come from the job you landed, the money you made, or the praise you received. Your greatest testimony will come from what you survived. The moment you thought it was over, the moment you had nothing left, the moment everyone walked out and everything fell through, but God stepped in, that's where the glory is. That's where the power is. Not in the ease, but in the endurance. Some of you are trying to understand why it's taking so long. You're waiting for the breakthrough, and you're thinking maybe it's too late. But let me tell you, God doesn't operate on your schedule. He's not bound by time or space or your timeline. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. God has a way of showing up right on time. And when he does, he doesn't just bring restoration, he brings transformation. He doesn't just fix what was broken, he makes it brand new. Because when he moves completely. He moves thoroughly. He moves with power. And when he's done, nobody will be able to say they did it for you. Nobody will be able to take the credit. They'll look at you and say, that had to be God. So stop apologizing for the struggle. Stop hiding your pain. Stop pretending you've got it all together. God does his best work in broken vessels. God gets the most glory from the most impossible situations. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. All you need to do is let him in. Let him touch the places you've been trying to heal. Let him calm the storm you've been trying to silence. Let him carry the weight you've been trying to bear. It's not too late. It's not too far gone. It's not beyond repair. If you're still breathing, God's not done. If you're still standing, there's still purpose. And that purpose will not be fulfilled by your effort alone. It will be fulfilled through your faith. It will be fulfilled through your surrender. It will be fulfilled through your willingness to say, Lord, I can't, but I believe you can. That's the place where miracles happen. That's the place where chains break. That's the place where peace flows, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it, but because only God can do it. There comes a point in every journey where strength fails, resources run dry, and intellect falls short. You can plan, you can hustle, you can network, but eventually you will hit a wall that your talent can't climb. It's in these moments that you realize just how fragile human effort is. You begin to understand that there are realms of life where logic can't lead you and skill can't save you. You tried to fix it. You tried to heal it. You tried to control it. But nothing worked. It didn't move. It didn't break. It didn't change. You've read every book, listened to every voice, exhausted every connection, and yet the door remains shut. The sickness doesn't leave. The storm doesn't stop. The pain doesn't ease. And it becomes clear some things are not meant to be moved by human hands. That's where God steps in. Because there are some battles that were never yours to fight. Some struggles are designed to bring you to the end of yourself, not to destroy you, but to introduce you to the one who holds all power. God has a way of letting things stretch just long enough to show you that you're not your own savior. He lets the strength of your flesh fail so that the strength of his spirit can rise. When you come to the end of your ability, When you finally hit that wall where nothing you do works, that's when the divine begins. That's where your effort ends and His glory begins. Too many people are trying to do spiritual work with physical tools. They're trying to fix spiritual problems with natural strategies. They think if they work harder, cry more, push further, it will change. But this kind of battle doesn't respond to willpower. It doesn't bow to intellect. You can't counsel your way out, manipulate your way through, or pretend it's not real. There are issues that are too deeply rooted, too spiritually charged, too eternally woven to be touched by earthly means. And when you reach that point, when you've thrown everything at it and nothing has moved, you have to acknowledge, this is bigger than me. Only God can step into a dead situation and breathe life again. Only God can take what has rotted and resurrect it into purpose. Only God can shut the mouths of lions, part the waters, and walk with you through the fire without the smell of smoke on your clothes. There are no formulas for that. There are no shortcuts or strategies. That's not something you can achieve, manufacture, or fake. That's God. Pure and holy power. And when He moves, He doesn't need permission, He doesn't need approval, and He doesn't need help. He moves in His time, His way, for His glory. And when He does, every eye will see and every voice will say, only God could have done that. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is strength under divine authority. It is the moment when you recognize that your striving is only delaying the miracle. So many of us are exhausted, not because we're lazy, but because we're trying to do God's job. We're trying to hold together what only He can hold. We're trying to open doors He never told us to knock on. We're trying to control outcomes He hasn't authorized. And the more we push, the more we stress. The more we force, the more we fail. There is no peace in striving. There is no rest in control. There is no breakthrough in pride. God doesn't respond to panic. He responds to faith. And faith is not loud. Faith is not frantic. Faith is quiet confidence that rests in the hands of a sovereign God. Surrender is not about doing nothing. It's about doing what God told you and letting Him do the rest. It's about stepping aside so He can step in. It's about releasing your timeline, your expectations, your blueprint, and saying, Lord, have your way. That's when things start to shift. That's when battles start to turn. That's when the atmosphere begins to change. Not because you worked harder, but because you let go. You took your hands off it and put it in His. And what you place in His hands, He transforms. He multiplies. He resurrects. He redeems. Some of the storms in your life didn't come to destroy you. They came to strip you, to break your pride, to tear down your idols, to get you to a place where you stop leaning on your strength and start leaning on His. God will let the boat rock. He will let the fire burn. He will let the walls shake. Not to harm you, but to get you to release the illusion of control, because control is the enemy of surrender. And as long as you're in control, God can't be. That's why some people are still stuck, still spinning, still tired, because they're holding on so tight to something that only moves when released. Faith doesn't clutch, it opens. Faith doesn't force, it trusts. Faith doesn't manipulate, it believes. And the moment you surrender, the moment you lift your hands and say, God, I trust you, even here, that's when the chains fall. That's when the walls crumble. That's when the healing flows. Not because you earned it, but because you finally made room for Him to move. Surrender is the soil where miracles grow. It's the posture that invites heaven into your situation. God doesn't need your perfection. He needs your permission. He doesn't require your performance. He desires your heart. And when your heart says yes, when your soul bows low and your spirit yields, when you say, I don't know how, but I trust you, you unlock the power of a God who can do anything. Your greatest testimony won't come from the times when everything went smoothly. It won't be built in the seasons where all the bills were paid, the doors were wide open, and the path was easy. No, your greatest testimony will rise from the ashes of what tried to destroy you. From the sleepless nights, the silent battles, the moments when you were hanging by a thread and no one even knew. That's where the testimony is born. Not in your comfort, but in your survival. Not in what you achieved, but in what you endured. God gets the most glory out of what you shouldn't have made it through. The things that had every reason to take you out, but somehow, some way, you're still standing. There are people who see your smile and have no idea the tears you cried to wear it. They hear your praise, but don't know the pain behind it. They look at your strength, but never saw the crushing that produced it. Because survival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's hidden. Sometimes the greatest victories are the ones you fight in secret. The times when you're bleeding on the inside, but still showing up, still believing, still trusting, still walking by faith when you can't see a thing in front of you. And when God brings you out of that, when he brings you through the storm that had no forecast of ending, through the valley where death felt closer than life, through the wilderness where every step felt like agony, that's when your story becomes a weapon. That's when your pain becomes power. Because what you survived is proof that only God could have done it. You didn't fake your way through that. You didn't manipulate your way out. You didn't charm your way up. You survived. And that survival is your testimony. You see, people can argue with your opinion. They can challenge your beliefs, but they cannot deny your story. They can't undo what God did in your life. And when you open your mouth to speak of it, when you dare to show the scars not as shame, but as evidence of grace, that's when others begin to believe. That's when faith is ignited in dry places. Because your testimony isn't just for you, it's for the ones watching, the ones who are where you were, the ones who are on the edge of quitting, the ones who think God doesn't see them. Your story tells them that God still delivers, that he still heals, that he still restores, that he still saves. It gives hope. It gives strength. It gives life. Because what nearly killed you has now become the very thing God uses to bring life to someone else. That's the power of a testimony born in the fire. Denial is not denial, but when you're waiting, it feels like denial. It feels like you've been overlooked, passed by, forgotten. You pray, and nothing changes. You fast, and the situation stays the same. You believe, but every door keeps closing. It's easy to wonder if God has heard you at all, but he has. He heard you the first time. He saw the tears. He felt the weight on your chest. The delay was never about punishment. It was about preparation. Because God doesn't just want to give you a blessing. He wants to prepare you to carry it. He wants to build the strength in you to sustain what he's about to release. We live in a world of instant gratification, but God doesn't operate on our timeline. He is eternal. He is sovereign. He is strategic. And he knows that what looks like a delay to you is actually alignment in the Spirit. He's moving pieces behind the scenes, orchestrating the right moment, the right people, the right environment. Because God's not just interested in doing it, he wants to do it right. He doesn't give premature blessings. He doesn't rush his process to meet your impatience. And if you receive too soon what was meant for a later season, it can crush you. That's why he waits. That's why he holds it back, not because you're unworthy, but because he loves you too much to let you receive something you're not ready for. There are some doors God hasn't opened yet because he's still building the hallway. He's still shaping your character. He's still teaching you how to trust him when nothing makes sense. It's easy to believe when everything is working. But can you believe when everything is silent? Can you trust him when the heavens are quiet and the answers don't come wrapped in clarity? That's where real faith lives. Not in the manifestation, but in the waiting. Not in the miracle, but in the silence before it. And when God does move, when the moment finally comes and he steps in, it won't look like the pieces finally falling together. It'll look like divine intervention. It'll look like something only God could do. Because when God answers, he does it in such a way that nobody else can take credit. Not your resume, not your network, not your reputation. He moves in a way that makes people stand back and say, that had to be God. That's why the wait is necessary. Because in the waiting, he's purifying your motives. He's killing your pride. He's stripping away your dependence on things and people and status. He's drawing you closer to himself. So when the blessing comes, you'll know where it came from. Not from you, not from man, but from the one who saw you in the dark and still had a plan for your life. And when it finally unfolds, you won't be bitter about the wait. You'll be grateful because the delay made you ready. And in that moment, you'll know it was never a denial. It was a setup for something greater. So now you see what you couldn't fix, what you couldn't move, what you couldn't understand, what you cried over in silence and fought in the dark was never in your hands to begin with. It was always in God's. Every delay, every breakdown, every moment where your strength failed was a setup to reveal that only God could step in and do what no one else could. He let it stretch so he could show himself strong. He let it break so he could rebuild it better. He let it fall apart so when he puts it back together, it won't be for your glory, but for his. This is not the end. It's the beginning of something that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, and hearts have not imagined. So stand still, let go, trust him, because when it happens, you won't be able to explain it. You'll only be able to say, only God could do it.